Welcome aboard, Skylark Outdoors here, and today we are reviewing the Sea Ray SLX 400, which we've got right here. So welcome aboard. We're going to go for a walk on this thing, and the first thing you see is this has a massive swim platform, but then it also has wings that fold down on the side of the swim platform to extend this. And what's really neat about those wings is that from the outside of the boat, it doesn't look like there's a seam there at all. So as you go into the cockpit and the helm, you can see you've got a dual helm seat, and then down below, we've got a little bit of a cabin. But what's really cool about this, rather than a traditional cabin cruiser where you're up higher, it does have a true bow rider section up there in the front, which is pretty cool. Very nice helm station. And then we're going to take a look down in the cabin here. So you can see you've got a forward convertible berth. You can convert that table instead into a bed there, or you can leave it as a lounge table and chairs. And then you have a aft berth right here. Both of these are plenty big enough for two people. And then you've got your head here. It's a combined head shower. And then you've got a sink. So what's really interesting about this is they're able to fit all that in there while still having that front bow rider section and a lot of seating. You've got a cooler down there, refrigerator, and then here we've got that swim platform. When you fold that swim platform down, you probably get, I would say, at least another 10 to 15 square foot of space when it's folded down. And then you've got a grill in the aft here. You've got plenty of seating. You've got a table in the back. This is what I would say the ultimate day boat in terms of layout, because you've got rear facing seating, you've got forward facing seating, you've got tons of seating on that bench, you've got rear seats behind the captain's chair, and then this seat right here that can rotate either forward or aft. And then you have plenty of seating up there in the bow rider section. And it's just really incredible how you've got a cabin underneath there with plenty of light. You can see there's a window there on the cabin, but you still have that bow rider section, which isn't elevated. Typically on a cabin cruiser of, let's say, 10 years ago, the cabin would have been taller down here, and some of the geometry would have been changed, and then the front would have had a really high enclosed bow rather than the bow rider seating. But I feel like some of the best seating on a boat like this is the bow rider seating when you're just hanging out and the comfortable walkthrough. Typically, there was always a really weird step in cabin cruisers where you'd kind of have to step up above the cabin, usually between the windshield or on the side of the windshield. That is fine when you're at anchor, but when you are moving, always felt a little bit unstable. So it's nice that they've worked that out, and it just takes a little bit away from the cabin. But I would say for most people, this is a better layout, because if you want to take a nap, you want to sleep for a night or two or three, you could do that. And really, most people don't use cabin cruisers to the full extent, so it's a lot of wasted space, because it's not really comfortable to be in a cabin cruiser typically while you're underway. If you're going like 25 or 30 miles an hour and there's any kind of seas, you're going to feel that chop. And a lot of people, when you're down below in a cabin cruiser, are vulnerable to seasickness. Just in my experience is what I found is more people, if they're down in the cabin, I don't know why, but something about that motion when you're going a little bit faster can cause a reaction for people who are more susceptible to it. So I think having the more deck space on this boat rather than cabin space is really a preference, and you're going to get more use out of the boat. It a boat, any boat with a cabin, if it's more than two people, typically, and besides large yachts, any more than two people, maybe three or four people, that space starts to get very small in a short period of time, unless you really want all those people to be on there and you're very close with them and you get along really well. On boats, I don't know why, but the space seems to shrink day after day exponentially when you've got a lot of people on there. So just something to consider. And one of the reasons that I would rather have more deck space to have people on board for a day, a weekend, a couple hours. And for most people, I would say that the use case is you are going to have people out for 1 to 6 hours on a typical day in most boat use cases. And this boat maximizes that use case in terms of entertaining, having a good time, getting the air and flow through your hair, and enjoying the day, a nice summer day. I definitely think you would have a nice time on this boat. So this is the Sea Ray SLX 400. They make an outboard version of it. This is the inboard version of it. It's got twin Mercruiser 8.2 liter Magnum engines, 430 horsepower each for a total of 860 horsepower. And then these are paired with the Bravo 3 drives. Bravo 3 does a very good job at converting power to forward motion. Because with the Bravo 3, you've got dual props. So as you go up in engine size, up in boat size, having the double prop, that is going to help you go faster and convert more energy into forward motion. The only thing about Bravo drives, or Bravo 3 drives, is they definitely are expensive if you have any issues with them, or you need to replace them, or you hit something with them. So don't do that. Make sure you take care of those things. And they should last a long time. And then the other thing that you need to be careful of, just with any drive that isn't an outboard or even outboards, is you want to make sure that you have correct shift cable adjustment on your Bravo 3s to make sure that these things last a long time. And over time, the shift cables can stretch when you're using a boat in and out of gear. And if you've got those not properly calibrated, what you're going to do is shift in and out and grind those gears over time, and it's a cumulative thing. So just something to be aware of. I've had Bravo 3s before. In terms of power and really making a big boat go fast, they get the job done. However, you just need to be aware if you go through these things, they are not inexpensive to replace, so definitely be aware of that. It's got a 250-gallon fuel tank. This is 39 feet and 9 inches. 12-foot, 1-inch beam. It's got 50-gallon water capacity. You've got the head in there, obviously. And then it is Yacht certified. This weighs in at a massive 20,794 pounds. So you are not going to be towing this with your dually truck. Most likely this thing's a beast. You definitely will be leaving this in one spot, and then if you're towing it, you're most likely going to need to have some kind of semi-trailer towing this thing. And you've got a 44-inch draft with the drives down and a 33-inch draft with the drives up. You've got a 21-degree dead rise on this, 3-year entire boat warranty, manufacturer's warranty, and then it says a 10-year structural hull warranty. And then they make this in that outboard version. The outboard version seems to typically be a little bit more expensive, and then that rear swim platform is configured a little bit differently. But if you're in saltwater, I would definitely say go with the outboard engines on this particular boat. If you're in freshwater, you can use this no problem. You're not going to have any more wear and tear on this than you would with the inboards. It's just with having inboards down in the engine room, compartment, bilge area, it seems like over time you're going to have more issues, and then to remove the engines is a lot more difficult, and service the engines is a lot more difficult, and they require more service typically in saltwater than they do in freshwater when you have inboard engines because of the flushing. So if I was in saltwater, I would go with the outboard engine version of this. If I was in freshwater, you could definitely go after this if you wanted in freshwater. And what's going to be really nice is you have that amazing swim platform in the back. The biggest difference between the outboard engine version in this and the inboard engine version of this is price. So the outboard engine version for a 2024, I've seen prices as high as $945,000. There might even been one that was over $1 million if you had all the different accoutrements on it, but $945,000 brand new. To the high 700s for the outboard versions with pretty basic power package. But once you go into the inboard engine, you're looking at a price range for brand new 2024. Maybe it's got 100 hours on it or something, so still pretty much a brand new boat. 2024 with the inboard engines was around 720,000 to 680,000. And then if you were looking at like a 2021 model, so they've made this model for a couple of years, you can get the inboard versions for in that $400,000 to $500,000 range. So you're taking a lot of depreciation on this from 2024 to 2021, 680,000. If you went all the way to the low end, 400,000, you're getting about $280,000 of depreciation on this boat over 2 or 3 years. Now it's going to depend on use cases and everything like that, but typically what I've found on a boat like this, 3 years old, you're not going to have any more than 200 hours on these boats. That's just the typical user of these boats. Now there's exceptions to everything, but typically I would say for 3 years use, you're going to have less than 200 hours, sometimes even less than 100 hours use, which for V8 Mercruiser 2.0 Magnums is nothing. That is just barely even breaking these things in. I think what's more important when you're looking at the age of a boat and engine hours is you can do this with Mercruisers and most engines that have an ECU or electronic control unit on it, is look at what range the engines were run in, right? What RPM range. So they'll give you an hour printout of engine hours and how many hours it spent at 1,000 RPM, 2,000 RPM, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 RPM, 6,000. I mean, it depends on the engine if it's capable of that. But what I like to look for when I'm looking at that readout and printout is engine hours that are spent in cruise. So that's like, let's say 60 to 75% throttle. That, in my opinion, is the kind of wear that these can take for a long time. If you're using a large displacement engine, if you're at 50 to 75% power range most of the time, that's really where you want to be. And these engines can go an extremely long time then, as long as you're changing the oil, oil filters, and making sure that you're doing all the maintenance on them. That is relatively easy for the engine oil thing. People just forget to do that. They get water in their oil, whatever it is, and that's the death of an engine right there. What I don't like to see is really high RPM usage from 75 to 100% of the engine throttle range. And, you know, you can go fast and maybe you're 80%, 90%. That's perfectly fine. And even sometimes you want to open it up at 100%. But what it can be indicative of when you have a low engine hour boat with a high RPM and high hours at RPM is that somebody was not trimming these drives properly and you're getting cavitation back there, which is causing issues with heat on the drives. It's causing all types of different issues where you're not getting water flowing past these. And that's actually something Bravo 3s were known of as the past. And they've even got kits where you've got water spray down for the top of the drive. But basically, when you don't have the drives trimmed correctly, with these props and the geometry of the boat, and it's not every boat, but what you can have is that you're not getting enough cooling water around the top of the drive because these are so powerful and they're spinning, the gearing and everything is spinning the props so fast that it's like creating these air pockets up above the props that aren't allowing water to wash through and hit all parts of the drive. And that's what you need to keep cool is all the gearing and the gear oil and lubrication inside the drive cool over time. So I don't like to see something that has max RPM for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours on a low hour boat, or if I don't know the user of the boat or how they were using it, because sometimes that's indicative to me that they were running these things too trimmed up, or they didn't understand quite how the planing of the boat worked, and they're letting those get too hot. So just something to be aware of when you are looking at a used boat. But overall, pretty cool boat. Hope you enjoyed this review of the Sea Ray SLX 400 with twin Mercruiser 8.2 liter mags, 430 horsepower. We'll see you next time.